the same thing that, for example, my space launch might have been in a reality environment. And so, it'll be interesting. To more directly the answer, do I appreciate or like space sims more now? I don't think I've seen or played any space sims since that flight, because I don't think there's really been any good ones in a decade. How long have you been out of the business?
About a decade. But...
Okay, so maybe now that we'll get some good stuff to sit down and play, I'll be able to answer that question more positively. But at the moment, I would say it's not impacted it.
Who wants to know what's on the horizon for you game-wise, and when can we expect your project on the site?
Yeah, well, it's funny. We've talked about kickstarting, parts and pieces of what we're working on a lot, and we've been somewhat fearful of setting ourselves up without knowing what was over that horizon. Although, what's happening here is a huge inspiration to us as well. So you never know what we might do. But on the subject of what product we're working on, with our new company Portalarium, we sort of set up a sequence of events to lead to what in my mind is the spiritual successor to Ultima. We first put the band back together, so to speak, got our team back together, and worked on our client server code and put a poker game on top of it, not because we thought poker games were going to change the world, because it allowed us to monetize on top of building our client server billing architecture. Then we're just now releasing this game called Ultimate Collector, which is a game that not only we think is a great game in itself, but targeted not towards the Ultima family, but really targeted towards a lighter audience. But it let us do player avatars, player housing, secure trading, buying and selling, that sort of thing, and synchronous and asynchronous gameplay with each other. And now with that out and in hand, we're now moving on to the third piece, which is to put the role-playing game and the what I call fantasy art on top of it as we build the role-playing game. That way, instead of taking 3 to 5 years to make a big MMO-like product, we've broken it into pieces that we can kind of sell and keep ourselves funded down through that path. So I think by next spring you'll see a little bit of announcements, some imagery of what the ultimate RPG might look like. But whether and how and if we turn to you all to help fund it or validate it, that is yet to be seen. We haven't made that decision yet.
What the most important part of building an online world is?
Well, that'd be interesting. I'd be interested to hear both our answers to that, actually, because I think we have
more experience than you did Ultima Online, which is pretty much the precursor to every modern MMO. So.
It's interesting. I think that there are two schools of thought when it comes to online worlds where you put lots of people in a reality together, and the path that I prefer, I would not necessarily. Well, in fact, I think very specifically is not the one that is necessarily the best validated by the marketplace. It's just the one I prefer. And what I mean by that, I even kind of break role-playing games in general down these two into these two camps. One camp, and the camp that you see much more commonly, and in fact is the one that has proven that it is the most financially rewarding, is what I'll call the systems approach. Is a role-playing game that has the proper challenge and reward cycle, what in negative terms you might describe as the level grind. And even though people besmirch the level grind when they feel that it's happening to them in a lot of games, and I'll use everything from EverQuest through World of Warcraft, and even games that I really love, like I'm a huge Diablo fan. Those games are all really about leveling up and this advancement curve. And when they do it really well, it's a very addictive mechanic. It's like a Las Vegas slot machine. There's a science to that addictive behavior, which the best of these games do. And the systems approach allow you to create, even in multiplayer games, a very fair system that you can kind of balance one time and it works all the way through. So it makes a lot of sense from the development side, and it scientifically works from the marketing and sales side. I, however, personally am much more passionate about what I'll describe as reality crafting in a sandbox game. If I had to name a game that is as different as mine but still a kindred spirit, I would say it's something like Minecraft. Minecraft to me is a great sandbox game where they've set up some physical rules of the reality, but then you as players can go experience it very diversely, and almost have a lot of emergent behaviors through the rules they've set up. And to me, the best Ultimas and best role-playing games in general are games where the reality is very complete. Another great one would be very inspirational from a friend of ours, Doug Church, Thief, or Paul Neurath. Thank you.
Well, it's Paul Neurath and Doug Church, right?
They both did. They did together, yeah.
And on Ultima Underworld before that. So.
Exactly. Well, the reason why I like Thief, though, is to me a role-playing game. I almost use. I know these words are meant to be the same thing. RPG and role-playing game is the acronym for it. But I look at a role-playing game is where you're going to go play a role. You're playing the role of a thief. So if you are playing a game called Thief, you should be more successful by how well you embody the role of thief. And a lot of RPGs aren't that way. A lot of RPGs literally are just min-maxing your skills and attributes. And in my mind, when you get down to a min-maxing thing, it's now a spreadsheet game. It's no longer compelling to me from a role-playing standpoint. But anyway, that's kind of my bent on it. And that's actually coming back to your work and the Commander stuff. That's actually one of the things I think you walk that line on really well. Whereas I often will fall, if anything, too deeply under the sandbox side. You always did a really good, really powerful job of making sure that you kept story at the forefront, while also having really good, well-balanced systems behind it. Privateers come to my mind in particular as another one of those where you kind of got both sides of that pretty well.
Yeah, no, I think, obviously much more than Wing Commander, which was more, it had branching missions, but it was more sort of linear. But yeah, no, I kind of like the combination of a sandbox, so you sort of feel like you can do kind of what you want to do, but I also want some level of narrative in it that sort of feels like it's got its own character. It's not generic, right? I don't like sort of cookie cutter. Like, okay, I can tell this was just a randomly generated mission and it has no personality. So what I think is good is to have a system that is a sandbox but has sort of actual specific narrative and story put into it. And if you pepper it, you can probably put that with